Welcome to the Coding Loft. My name is Samuel and today you will learn about 5 different ways to loop over arrays in JavaScript. This is one of the most common things you will do as a JavaScript developer, so even if you just end up using one technique, it's always good to know about the other ones. Without further ado, let's jump right in. In VS Code, I have this array called cities, which has 5 cities: Berlin, Munich, London, Paris, and New York. So let's look at the different ways how you can loop over this array. Number one is using a for loop. So a for loop, you have to start with the keyword for, and then you have to specify a condition. And in this case, we have a variable called I. That's the iteration number, and it starts at 0. And then we have to specify the condition that needs to be true for the for loop to run. So in this case, I needs to be smaller than our array dot length. So that means our array has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values. So as long as I is smaller than 5, the code that we will specify next will run. And after each iteration, we want to increase I by 1. So for now, let's just console.log the cities. So we want to take our cities array, and we always just want to print out the current one. So we just have to say I here. And now when I save, you can see that first it says Berlin, Munich, London, Paris, and New York. Now let's just put in console log up here so we can see that this is the for loop, because we will do the other ones in a second. What's great about the for loop is it's very flexible. You can adjust it the way you like, and you can use it in pretty much any setting. So in any browser or any JavaScript environment that you use. Next, we have the forEach function. So we'll also just say console.log. It's the second one, forEach. And the way that this works is that forEach is a method that every array now has. So when you call the cities array and you press dot, there's a function called forEach that you can run. And in here you can specify a callback function that will be executed for every item of the array. So in this case, we refer to every item as city, and then we just want to console.log the city. And now you can see it gives us the exactly same output. It's easier readable than the for loop, but especially if you use it in combination with an arrow function like here, older browsers might not support it. But the good news is that most browsers nowadays do. Number 3, the for off loop. So also say console.log 3 for off. Now this is similar to the for loop before, but it's a bit more readable. We want to loop over the cities array, and we want to say for every city of our cities array, we want to do something, and then we specify in a code block. You don't have to call it city, you can call it item, element, whatever you want, but city makes it more readable. So what do we want to do? We want to console.log it just now. So now we have also here our loop over the array. So also here we just looped over the array. This is also quite readable compared to a regular for loop, and it's also standard in pretty much every browser nowadays. Number 4, we have the for in loop. So we also say console.log for in. Now the for in loop is usually used for objects and not for arrays, but you can use it also for arrays. What you would do is you would say for const city in cities, and then you do something with the city. So again, city in this case refers to every item in the array. Now there is a difference to the for off loop, and you will see that in a second. So when we console.log our city, you will see that it just gives us back the number. So instead of giving us the item itself, it gives us the index of the item in the array. So how can we use that if we want to print out whatever is in the array? So we say cities, and then we give the index number. This is the least recommended way to loop over an array, because the for in loop loops over objects, and it also loops over the prototype of an object. And an array is an object, and an array has a prototype. So it might not be the best case to use it here, but you know it is an option and you might see it in some cases. Number 5, using a while loop. Also here we say console.log while loop. Now the while loop is a bit different. So we first need a increment number. In this case we say let I equal 0, and then we say while a certain condition is true, whatever we specify in the code block will execute. In this case, while I is smaller than cities.length, we will execute our code block. And again, we just console.log our city. So we say cities, and then we pass in I as the index reference. Now with a while loop, always make sure that there's a condition to ensure that it will end. If we would just run it like this, I would always be smaller than cities.length, and it would be an endless loop. So in this case, we have to say I++ at the end. So after each iteration, I is increased. So it starts at 0, it prints it, then it becomes 1, it prints it, it becomes 2, and so on. Until this condition is no longer true, so until I is 4, it's still smaller than cities.length, but once it gets 5, this won't execute anymore. So let's save it. And there you see while loop, we also looped over the array. If you look closely at the while loop, it's actually quite similar to the for loop, because the I we specify inside of the for loop condition here. And we also have I smaller than cities.length, and we have the iteration already in the for loop condition. So it's most common to see a for loop in this case, but you know how to use a while loop and how it looks. And there you have the 5 most common ways to loop over arrays in JavaScript. If you did find this video helpful, please leave a like and a comment down below, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future. Thanks for watching, bye bye!